am Amy Vetter, and welcome to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. This valuable time is for you to pause in your day and go on your own self-journey. Discover the beliefs that are holding you back from living your best life at work and at home. Learn from the guests on this show as they share their inspirational stories on how they found ways to break internal beliefs that were no longer serving them. Because if you believe you can, you will. And our podcast begins now. In this episode of Breaking Beliefs, I interview Grace Horvath, who is the Vice President of Services at CPAmerica. CPAmerica is a national not-for-profit trade association that serves independent CPA firms. Grace is responsible for driving the strategies for delivery of services and resources provided to its member firms. These are designed to increase firm growth, profitability, and sustainability. Grace has specialized in business development, marketing, programs, and services throughout her career in a variety of industries. She has dedicated her career to service and also personally makes a difference at home and abroad through her affiliation with the Rotary and other civic and charitable organizations. In this discussion, Grace talks about her beginnings, where she grew up in an immigrant family, and the career pivots she has made along the way. She shares what she learned from her upbringing as well as her work experience that began at Christian Dior in sales, while she was working to earn her degree in English and Humanities. These lessons are ones she still uses today as a leader and in her home life. So I am in Hawaii today with CPAmerica and with Grace Horvath from CPAmerica. So I'm going to start off and just let Grace talk a little bit about her background and story.
Okay. So I have a background in sales and marketing. I was not actually even looking for a position when I was invited to interview for a job at CPAmerica. And my role there now has evolved. I was hired as part of a sort of succession plan for my predecessor, who had done an incredible job. So I had very, very, very big shoes to fill. I mean, this woman was so highly respected, and the work that she had laid out, I mean, I stepped into a pretty good role.
Yeah. Why was she highly respected? What was it that she did?
She was highly intelligent. She was very thoughtful. She had a good way of understanding what our members need and creating resources to help them do what it is that we do. And so she was just very respected for her knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Knowledge. And I came in with no knowledge of the profession at all.
Oh, really?
Zero.
Yeah.
So I had a background where I worked for a provider to associations.
Okay.
So I was very, very intimately clear with association structure and the membership structure and why people want to be members and their expectations out of what they consider valuable. And then on the flip side of that, my husband's an engineer. And so I'm like, I know about this professional services model. I get it.
Right.
But that was pretty much the extent of my knowledge.
Yeah. So maybe you can go back a little. So what did you go to college for? What was your degree?
Ironically, I started in accounting.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I graduated with honors with a degree in English, with a secondary in humanities.
Oh, really? So why did you start in accounting? What was it about accounting?
Because I didn't know what I wanted to do, and that seemed practical.
And safe. Was there anyone in your family that was an accountant?
Nope. I was the first person in my family to go to college.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So where are you from?
I'm from Miami.
Okay.
Born and raised in Miami. I went to school at Florida International University.
Okay.
And I worked for about 14 years for Christian Dior Cosmetics.
Oh, okay.
Which was a subsidiary of Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy.
Yeah.
And so that was 14 years of very thorough and extensive and excellent sales training.
Right.
And as I advanced with them over the years, I remember getting this promotion, and I was now going to have a territory, and I didn't even really know what that meant. I was so young. And I said, well, I'm thinking this is great. I get this fabulous discount and I get to drive around all these stores. And they're like, no, you're going to develop business. I said, what do you mean I'm going to develop business? They said, your job is not to stand in here and wait for people to come in. Your job is to make sure that people are coming in. So go find it.
Oh, wow.
So that was how I really.
And you had no background in that?
Well, I knew the product very well because the company had one of the most incredible training on product knowledge and training on sales. And so I was very comfortable in what I did with them.
Right.
But that was totally new. So like the first time you walk into a chamber meeting, you're like, oh my God, what am I going to do here?
Yeah.
You know? So
how did you have the confidence to go out? Because I know for a lot of people, selling is a really hard thing. So you kind of have one idea of what sales is, but it's totally different to cold sell, right? And put yourself out there. So once the shift happened, how did you find the confidence to say, I'm going to be able to do this?
Well,
or did you not think that initially?
Like I said, spending time with that company, a lot of what we spent time on was being very polished and very poised. We were selling very, 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 very expensive products.
Yes.
And you're appealing to things that are very sensitive. You're appealing to women. You're appealing to them about things such as anti-aging.
Yes.
And when I'm a girl who's standing there at 22 years old, I don't have any wrinkles on my face and I'm like a size 0.
Yeah.
But I'm speaking to a woman who's middle age,
right?
And who has the money to drop, which was ungodly at the time, $500, $600, $700,
right?
Because she thinks this is going to make her feel good,
right?
So you had to learn how to listen and appeal and do the same thing that we say in the accounting profession right now is you're not selling anything, you're helping.
Yes.
And so when you step back from it and said, I'm not here to sell you anything. Let's talk about what you need and let me hear what it is you would like to have happen. And then let's see if I can help you with that.
Right.
And that in turn would build loyalty and you learn the relationship building. So when I had to go out and start doing that, it was kind of the same thing, just on a much bigger scale. Instead of being one individual, it was organizations and places where we were trying to get people to come in or let them come us do events for them, so on and so forth. But it was that same premise of relationship building. And you asked me earlier about, I guess, shifts.
Right.
Like when were there things that, happened in your career or your life that would make you a point of transition.
Right.
And part of that point of transition was taking the focus off of me and focusing on the people that I'm supposed to be helping.
Yes.
So that was a big turning point. And I was lucky to have that experience at a younger age.
Right. So I want to step back further. So you said your parents didn't go to college.
Okay.
So how did you grow up? Like, what was your examples with your parents and what were some of the belief systems that they instilled in you?
Well, I had an interesting childhood, very, very interesting. We were really poor.
Yeah.
My mom's parents were immigrants from Cuba. And she had me really young.
Okay.
So she had me very young. My father, he had lost his father, so he was raised by 2 Southern women. And this is in the 60s. And there's, a lot of things going on in the 60s. And when you're 16, 17 years old and you have a kid, it's kind of hard to focus on that.
Right.
But I was surrounded by a lot of powerful women. On my dad's side, it was my granny and my great aunt.
Yeah.
And then on my mom's side, it was, my grandmother, and there were just all these women kind of making it on their own. And they focused on me like, this is not going to be your life. And you're not going to rely on anybody, because clearly what they had seen was relying on other people wasn't getting them very far in life. And they taught me to be fiercely independent and to really rely on myself.
Yeah.
And college, that was just not an option. It was like, you're going to do this.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for it and you're going to work through it.
Yeah.
But you're going to go do this.
And was that something you wanted to do? Like, so I know they were telling you to do it, but was it something that you were like, yes. I want this?
Yes.
Because you saw their life wasn't something you wanted.
It was so difficult.
Yeah.
It was so difficult. I mean, you know, the first time you get, okay, the crowning moment when you learn to drive a car, right? And
Right.
you take the car out by yourself, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh my God, I'm driving. This is so cool. And you're thinking about all the things you're going to do. And to drive to the store and have to, and this was in the olden days, I had to pull out the food stamp booklet.
Mm-hmm.
And here's somebody that you know from school, and you just want to crawl under the cash register.
Right.
And I was like, this is not going to be my life. It's not,
right.
I'm not living a difficult life like this.
Yeah. So have you found, because I know with a lot of our backstories, you know, one of the stories I told today in the session is about my family losing everything when I was in high school. And I have found in my life too, because of it, like I've always got backup jobs or think, because I'm always afraid, like, what if we lose everything, you know, and that sort of thing. So are there decisions that you make because of some of that fear from growing up? Yeah.
You should see my pantry. I open the pantry and I'm like, I have a problem.
You're preparing for a hurricane?
Well, and I realize it's from just how many times that they're, you know, like you weren't even worrying about what am I going to eat today? You were worrying about what am I going to eat today?
Right.
And so, you know, I look in there and Ava's like, Mom, you have like 8 cans of tomatoes.
Yeah.
So anyway, you know, you learn a lot of things. It makes you, definitely for me, it made me stronger.
Right.
You know, my people in my family worked very hard.
Mm-hmm.
They had very good work ethic. They worked very hard. They expected me to work very hard. And so there was accountability for grades, accountability for having a job and earning and contributing to the household because it was necessary. And that really instilled, it was not only the work ethic, it was just a responsibility to take care of yourself.
Right.
And not be, you know, I don't want to say to be insensitive, but to just understand that, you know, life is very difficult and you have to be strong and smart and self-sufficient in order to protect yourself.
Right.
And then even if you want to get to the next level and say, okay, let me get on just protecting myself. How about I might like to really enjoy life?
Right.
You know?
Exactly. And giving yourself the freedom to do that. I know it took me a long time to be like, wait, I'm not the 16-year-old Amy anymore. If I want to take a vacation, like take a vacation. You know, it's like giving yourself that grace to like, I earned that vacation and not feel guilty about it.
Right. I understand.
Yeah. So, so it sounds like that your family didn't blame outside circumstances. They really took responsibility for their own journeys and put that in you.
Absolutely. And I didn't see, I never saw my family as victims, and nobody portrayed themselves as victims. My family was interesting.
Yeah.
A little bit crazy.
Yeah.
There were definitely things going on there, but, you know, there were a lot of other things there that I saw that were cool, that were instilled into me, which was like, money was not what made you happy. It could make things comfortable, but what things I really learned were like friendship and the support of friends and how important those things were, and community and education. They were just so serious about education, you know. So, you know, you just learn a lot in those circumstances.
So why did you, so accounting didn't work for you. So why did you choose English and Humanities?
So I started out in accounting. I was very immature when I went to college. And, you know, I had a hard time transitioning from the mindset of here you are in high school and you can't, like, you have to do this. If you don't, you know, if you have to go to school, and you go into college and like, you don't have to be there.
Right.
And so I was struggling with this contradiction of still that sort of youthful, like, I don't want to do this work and I don't want to listen to this teacher. And of course I'm not doing well on the grades. This person doesn't know to have to explain anything.
Exactly.
And I got really sick one semester and I missed a whole semester. And I got sick at a time when I couldn't drop the class. And so I completely failed the semester. And that was so utterly mortifying. I was like,
Right.
oh my God, like this is totally not acceptable. And this is completely 100% my fault.
Yeah.
I mean, I got sick, but I shouldn't have been struggling like this to begin with.
Right.
And it was, I just wasn't appreciating the circumstances.
Yes.
You know? And so once I went back after that, so how did I get into English is what you asked me. I had started taking core classes, and I had to take these core literature classes. And the professors where I went at FIU in the humanities department were just incredible. And they just sparked a passion. They just sparked a passion in me that I was just eating this stuff up.
Right.
And what the correlation that I liked in between literature and humanities, and you're studying and you're reading and you're getting into these really interesting analysis of the work, and you realize that all of the best literature that we have today is very closely tied to the political climate and what's going on in history and in the world.
Yeah.
And what I really was enjoying, and I considered a career in academia because I was so passionate about what we were doing, that and I would kind of look then outside of the world of people, complaining and worrying, and look at the way our politics are now like a mess, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, if you would have like studied history, studied literature, and thought about culture as a whole, you'd see that we're really not that different.
No, it's
give
repeating.
You greater perspective,
yeah.
So that you wouldn't be so freaked out all the time.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So when I came out with that degree, it was like, well, I was doing this parallel to working, as I had explained to you. So I was working and I was building up this career. And at the time in academia, I was like, I really want to go and get a master's, and I'm going to become this great professor, and I'm just going to be like I'm going to move to England and work at Oxford. And
right.
So my female professors were like, Grace, you're probably already making more money than we are in sales. And you got to understand that this is still a really chauvinistic profession. This was in the 80s. And they said, you got a great mind, and now you have an education, but even if you want to get a master's degree, you really should go a different direction. Like, don't stay in this area of academia. Really? Which was stunning to me.
Yeah.
And they're like, we love what we do, but we've been working with you for years, and just think like you have other opportunities and you should take them.
So and I think this is an important thing because, and it's funny how life has kind of changed, right? Because those are the types of things computers can't replace, like a lot of the liberal arts type, things that before were said, but, there's something within us that it didn't feel like work to you once you found that, right? Like it was enjoyable.
No, I loved it.
Right. And
like,
you
shifted. I have to do a paper? What do you mean I have to do a self-study? And I have 8 weeks to come up with like, a 200-page paper. Oh, I'm so excited.
Right.
Like
yeah. So no, but that's the thing. Like when you find that passion and you break from like, I need to go, well, like originally, like you're going into accounting because that seems safe, versus like you go into this and you're like, this doesn't feel like work.
Right.
And then you got to shift your belief system again to say, well, I can't make a career out of this right now because of the advice you're getting, whether that was true or not, you'll never know. But how do you use something you're passionate about in your career today or then?
At the time, what I derived out of it is, while I was going through it and when I graduated and I got my degree, as first the sense of pride in graduating from college and being the first one to do that. When my dad passed away, he was living in just, it was seriously like a garage apartment.
Wow.
And he had in there this picture of me graduating college, like propped up next to his bed. And that was really cool. The path that I chose, the education that I got, it was pretty intellectual.
Right.
And so it really develops your ability to think. And so I got a sense of confidence in my abilities to communicate and to have a better understanding of the world.
Yeah.
And that was just the education portion of it. Then there's just the underlying result is the maturity that you gain getting through school.
Right.
And during that time, I met my first husband, fell in love. We had a baby. So I'm working, I have a baby, and I'm going to school because I know I've got to finish.
Right.
And it took me 9 years to finish.
Good for you. Wow.
But by the time, it was amazing. Yeah. But by the time I came out of this thing, it was like, wow, I am a full-blown grown-up right now.
Right. I know. Sometimes you look back, you're like, I'm in this body of an older person, but like, that's not, you're still thinking like you're that age. Yeah.
No, it was, so that, it just, becoming a mother, that's, do you have kids?
Yes.
Yeah. So, as soon as you have a kid.
Yeah. Life changes.
And things like worrying about, your, like the fear of missing out, so like, whatever, I have a kid now, and this changes everything.
Right.
So that was a life changer as well.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So with the lessons you've learned along the way, and I think also, what I'm hearing too is just your critical thinking skills of like not taking things at face value, like how to kind of decipher or have the empathetic skills of trying to understand an entire situation in order to help a relationship or sales or whatever it is. But with the lessons that you've learned, where did you as a leader, get hiccups along the way and go, well, my way's not working, or I thought this was the way to lead people, because it's like you go from, and I think a lot of times, even, in this profession, when we talk, like, people aren't trained to be, they're promoted because they do well. But once you get to a certain position, you're a people leader, not a subject matter expert anymore.
Right.
So how did you make that shift, or where did you find you made mistakes along the way?
Wow. There's probably very few people who love managing people and who are really good at managing people and who say, I want to do nothing but manage people. Because most leaders that you talk to say, give me the most difficult thing in front of me, and I would rather do that than manage people.
Right.
And so I remember when I first had to get into that, in the early part of my career, I was training and developing people, but I was training them to do a skill. I wasn't responsible for their performance, or how they felt, or what they thought of me. I was helping them develop skills they needed. And when I got into the first job that I had to actually be responsible for the coaching and the performance evaluation and the management of a particular individual, I realized that I was really bad at
it. Why did you say that?
Well, the first thing that was difficult was because I really didn't like this person.
Yeah.
I really, to be honest, it probably doesn't sound like a nice thing to admit, but you don't like everybody.
Human. Yeah.
And, and the role of the job that she was supposed to be doing, I'm like, wow, this is like, you're totally not doing a good job, and you take advantage, and you're supposed to be at work and you're not, and all these things were going on, and you're forced to say, okay, how am I going to get around this? And I did not end up being successful with that person, and I had moved on to something else, but you're thinking to yourself, if I'm ever going to get past this, if I'm ever going to get to the next level, I have to figure out how to communicate with this person. And it's not about whether I like them.
No.
But we have an objective here.
Right.
This is my job, and this is your job, and this is the end result that the company or whatever wants us to achieve. And so how am I going to help you do that?
Right.
How am I going to help you succeed?
Yes.
And I don't know that I thought about it in such a concise way at the time, but it was just this dawning revelation, like you can't just tell somebody what to do.
Right.
That does not work.
Yes.
And think about it. You don't want anybody telling you what to do.
No, of course. Yeah.
So, you have to sort of try to become inspirational.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the same thing as sales.
Right.
You figure out what their pain points are and how to help enhance them, you know, so that they feel like you're not being sold to or you're not being led in a certain direction, that they're actually part of the process. Yep. Yeah. So what things have you learned along the way in your own life that you instill in others that you think you leave as a legacy with people, or the example that you show?
Excellence is very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that I like to hopefully inspire the people that work with me and for me, or my friends, what they should expect of me, what should my children expect of me, is it's very important to me to do your best.
Yes.
To really do your best.
Mm-hmm.
And whether if I invited you over and I'm making you a meal, or working on a PowerPoint presentation, or putting together a project that you're doing, you don't want to turn out something that's mediocre.
Right.
And especially to the point that it's obvious, like, wow, this person didn't even try. That was clearly something that you were just trying to get over with.
Yes.
And so that commitment to following through on something, doing what you said you were going to do, and that it should be the best it can possibly be, is very, very important to me.
Yeah, that's always something that I told my children growing up. It's not about getting the A, it's that you did your best.
Right.
So even if you got an A minus, if you think you didn't do your best,
right,
like that was more the
right.
Yeah.
And you have to gain.
You want to be proud of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you don't want to disappoint people.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to disappoint people. And don't you remember those times in your life when you got called out for disappointing somebody? Like how, when you were a little kid, or even as a young adult, or a young professional, and somebody was really frank with you and said, I'm really disappointed in you because I know you could have done this better.
Right.
And then you're like, oh my God, you're right. I know I could.
Yeah.
And so it's very, I think that is a great part of getting older.
Right.
Is understand that about yourself,
mm-hmm.
and not having to spend worrying time about disappointing people, because you're just committed to doing the best you can do.
Right. And so have you found, so you said you have a daughter.
Mm-hmm. I have 2 kids.
Yeah. So have you found any of what you've learned transferred to them, or things from your mom and your grandma? Like, what are some things, the belief systems that you've kind of brought into your adulthood in parenting?
I feel like both of them. My son's a millennial. My daughter would be the next one back.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of them. My kids have always been really, really hard workers.
Yeah.
And amazingly, what I've seen in the 2 of them is they're both extremely empathetic people.
Mm-hmm.
as well. And they always consider what a person might be going through, instead of immediately making assumptions as to why somebody's doing something. And I think that their father and I did instill that and raise that in them.
Right.
That kindness was important, that doing your best was important. And something that I think that is missing in a lot of younger people right now is knowing that you're not always going to win.
Right.
And you're going to mess things up, and you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
When my daughter was going into college, God, they were just stressing him out at school, like that she, at 10, they were expecting her to know what she was going to be doing at 40.
Right, exactly.
And I really, really was committed to trying to alleviate that pressure off of her, and telling her, do well, you need to be making A's, or you need to be doing the best you can, but you let your life go in a path that you're going to discover who you are, and discover
Right.
what you want to do, and discover who you're going to be, and discover what makes you happy. And she was able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that, instilling in her that patience
Hmm.
to reveal what your passion is going to be,
Right.
and not get sidestepped thinking that you got to be stuck doing something else because somebody told you at 12 years old that you needed to pick that.
Right. Well, and I think that's you know, something that's very important, whether you're a leader, whether in your family, um, that you allow people to surface their passions,
Right.
and then you work with those passions.
Right.
Because if you try to push them in a direction to make you comfortable, it doesn't necessarily
Right.
work out. And you reminded me, because today, one of the participants in my session, we were, just talking about kind of our upbringing and how that affected things. And he was talking about that he realized he had never shared with his children his struggles,
Right.
and that he had made a commitment to himself that he was going to share that with his adult children.
Wow.
So that they kind of understood, like, other circumstances, because everyone just makes their assumptions,
Right.
right, about why they think you do what you do, and they have a life that's so different than your upbringing or his upbringing, and it's important to know what got them there as well.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So I think that sense of vulnerability and sharing, is really, really important.
Well, growing up being raised basically by a gaggle of women, they had no problem showing their vulnerability, and there was no.
I lived in Miami with the Cuban culture too. Yeah.
Especially on the Hispanic side, there was no shortage of everyone knowing how you felt.
Yeah.
So, and I think, another thing about my kids too that I really feel they got from me and from their dad, and just and lessons I learned was like, God, I hate excuses. Like, don't make excuses, and just own up to
whatever the situation
is, and do better the next time. Don't blame other people for things that are not going your way.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's important, even in the state of, not just the accounting profession, but any profession dealing with technology transformation right now. And we like to blame that. Rather than stepping back and saying, what are my fears? What are my belief systems that are getting in the way of progress?
Right.
Exactly. And that's why things like this are great ways to kind of help people come together and in a community way, share best practices.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love that about these conferences and about CPAmerica. I mean, so we're a sharing organization, and so there's sharing comes with a lot of responsibilities in the process, that you are going to have to make yourself somewhat vulnerable. You're going to have to expose yourself. You're going to have to be willing to be generous, and to be thinking about how you can help someone else. And when you come to these conferences, it's great, especially when you get into sort of the smaller sharing sessions, and somebody will finally, it takes them a while to get warmed up, but somebody will finally, I've got this thing going on at my firm, and does anybody else have this thing going on? That could potentially be something that you're afraid to say, because you're like, if I admit that this is going on, they're like, maybe think I don't know how to run my business. And somebody else will be like, oh yeah, and this is how we handle it. And we tried to fix it, or we tried this, and that was just a total failure for these reasons. So it's a very transparent process when I bring these people together in this organization.
Well, I don't think there's anything as lonely as leadership. And so when you can find communities where there's other people in your same shoes dealing with the same things, that you can be open and honest with and not
Oh, sure.
fear repercussion.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's when we all get better, right?
Yeah.
Than trying to solve it alone.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's almost like, you know, you've made it to leadership when no one in the office invites you to lunch anymore.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I like to wrap up with some like rapid fire questions.
Okay.
And you pick a category. Okay. So the category is either family and friends,
Okay.
money,
Okay.
spiritual, or health.
Family and friends.
Okay. So with family and friends, things or actions I don't have that I want.
So with my family and friends, things I don't have that I want. More time.
Yeah.
More time. I want more time with them.
Okay. Things or actions I do have that I want.
Things I have with my friends or family that I do
have
that
that I want to keep.
and that I do and that
Yeah.
I want to keep. Extreme intimacy and trust.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that you've
Yes.
created an environment for
Yes.
everyone to feel like they can show their bad side or a good side.
Yes, yes. Whether it's my kids, we can be very, oh, my kids will be brutally honest.
Yeah.
They'll just be like, Mom, this is, you know, this is how you're acting or whatever.
Right.
And the same with my girlfriends,
Right.
you know, or with my friendships, you know, guy and girlfriends, where you have those kind of friendships where you can just be very honest with each other,
Mhm.
because that's how you grow, and that's how you know you're surrounded by people who love you, because
Right.
they'll be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay. Things or actions I don't have that I don't want with my family or
Drama.
friends. Yeah.
Drama.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Last one. Things or actions that I do have that I don't want.
Things or actions I do have that I don't want. Do have, but I don't want them. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Well, because I try really hard to not have anything in my life I don't want.
Yeah.
I really like. I've reached an age where I feel I have the experience and the
Mhm.
maturity to. I mean, illness.
Right.
Like you can't generally control that.
Right.
But as far as drama or dishonesty,
Right.
or you know,
Yeah.
lack of trust, I mean, or you can make decisions to just like not have
Clear
that.
it out. Yeah.
So things
Yeah.
that I have that I
can
don't
be.
want.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's honestly that.
Well,
would be my
but I mean, but
answer.
it's also, you know, kind of how you're guiding your life too.
Yeah.
Of like, if something comes up that doesn't correlate
Right.
with you, you're like, okay, we either gotta
Yeah.
fix it or clear it.
Yeah. I don't have a whole lot of my life that I don't want.
Yeah, that's great.
I really don't, and I've worked very hard
to get to that.
The way I was brought up. I was brought up in a way that and the things I observed, I'm like, I've worked very hard to get to a place where generally what's in my life is what I want.
That's great.
So
anything that you want to make sure listeners take away or know more about before we end today?
Oh my gosh, well, I've told you so much. I tell you more than most people are going to want to know or care.
No, I think I really appreciate all the sharing, because all this, you know, we all go through our individual journeys, and we can all learn from everybody's story and how we overcome our own things, and we think it's just us. Right.
Right. I just think, you know, and your audience for this are people that are, tell me about your audience again.
Yeah, so it's really all sorts, but professional services, a lot of people that are, you know, in careers or going through transformation in their own lives, and trying to, you know, just figure out their path.
Sure.
Yeah, or learn from others and get better.
I think one of the most important things, and especially in professional services, and especially for somebody who wants a long-term career and wants to become partner, and maybe someday wants to become managing partner, people have to be able to trust you. They have to be able to trust you on every level. And they have to know that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. They have to know that you are reliable
Right.
and that you're accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's okay to let people see you be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay, even if you're the one at the top or close to the top, it's okay to let people know when you've made a mistake and when something's your fault.
Right.
And then don't just shrug your shoulders.
Right.
Say,
do something about
but
it.
this is how we're going to get through this and go to the next level.
Yeah, that's great. Well,
Yeah.
thanks so much. And more information about CPA America will be in the show notes of this
Good.
podcast. So if people want to find out more about it, they can find out there.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
In this episode's Mindful Moments, I would like to step back and really think about some of the stories that Grace shared and her learnings along the way that have helped her in her career, but also in her family life. And she really did a great job of giving us a flavor of the way that she grew up and some of her perceptions of coming from an immigrant family that was poor and the learnings that she had from the women around her. And I thought it was very interesting that they really supported her to make sure that she was not going to have the life that they had. You know, she had her own perception by stepping back and seeing how hard their life was. But they were supporting her in such a strong way to make sure that she would get herself a different life than they had experienced and during her upbringing. And I think that's really important, the community that we have around us, that they are supportive in positive ways to make sure that we do get to achieve the life of our dreams. And whether we have that support in our life or not, we need to make sure that we are providing that support to others. And a couple of the lessons that she learned from her family was about not relying on other people, that you are responsible for yourself, that you are responsible to take care of yourself, not blaming the outside world for your circumstances, that it's important to have a good work ethic and to take care of yourself. So a lot of times we want to look around us and blame situations, even if it's technology innovation and business change management processes or anything that we encounter, that we want to look on the outside and say, well, this person's not doing that, or this technology is not doing what I need, instead of saying, what do I need to make sure that I take care of, that I am independent in this process enough to take responsibility for what I need to do. And at the end of the day, making sure that we are living a life that does fulfill what we need. And one of the things, even from her upbringing of being poor and seeing the struggle, the lesson wasn't that money will make you happy. And I hope you heard that. It was that money is not what's going to make you happy. It's the friends and community and relationships that you create that are most important. And she's really proof of that with her family experiences, that even though they had what they had or didn't have, they all supported one another and were vehement in making sure that each person was going to be at their best, which really led to some of her leadership lessons about how important excellence is, which she learned a little bit in her beginnings of her career, as well as in sales with Christian Dior, that how important it was to be polished and poised and make sure that you are delivering an excellent service. So, but I think that's a lesson, right? That we're not just going through our day and letting it happen or just going through the mechanics of our work. Are we achieving excellence in what we do? And if we step back and looked at ourselves, would we think we did our best? So we could be hitting every sales number. We can be achieving every milestone we want. But at the end of the day, are we proud of the work that we do? Are we proud of how we show up with the people around us, and that we are contributing to that, that we're not making excuses or thinking that we'll never make mistakes along the way, because of course we will, that we're not so hard on ourselves, but it's the learning around the way. And did we do our best? Thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Breaking Beliefs podcast. I hope you will take a moment to pause before entering back into your day to reflect on this podcast and note 1 to 2 actions you are inspired to do from today's conversation that you could incorporate into your life. To read the full blog and listen back to this episode or any other, you can find them at www.amyvetter.com/Breaking Beliefs podcast and related videos on my YouTube channel. For daily inspiration, follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at Amy Vetter CPA. I hope that you will choose to like this and subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and more, so that you can join us for more inspiration on our next episode.